All right, all right, all right. Well, we are here about to begin with this podcast that have been waiting to do since I don't know, maybe a couple of years, maybe a couple of since I don't know, maybe a decade, and we'll start with a very good friend of mine that is ready here, and we're going to talk about, of course, politics. And our conversation is going to be very interesting for a main reason. The first reason is he's an expert on politics, and the second reason is that he has been waiting to do this for for also a lot of time. So here with me is Rick Heron. How are you, Rick?
Super.
This is our pilot test, so we are allowed to commit a lot of mistakes, but I believe we're gonna do just fine.
Yeah, I'm just right now. I'm just using my phone as the camera and microphone, and I'm holding it in my hand. I don't have a tripod or nothing.
All right, this is our pilot test. So maybe if we get famous, we can invest on a better background and lighting
Yeah.
and everything. So, Rick, let's talk first about you, and because we're gonna share this, maybe people will see us on live. Maybe people will see us in a different time because this is gonna be recorded on different platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and so people might see it later. Uh, Maybe later we'll have a sponsor. I don't know, which uh, which might be cool. People that are watching us can comment online. If you're watching on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, you can comment and you can interact with us. And so this is going to be a very interesting talk. Let's talk about politics. This is the name of our project. And Rick, let's first talk about you and your political orientation, your political beliefs. Let's talk about you.
Well, my political beliefs are basically the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence, of the American Declaration of Independence, that is, which simply states that there is such a thing as truth. And the truth is, we were created and we were endowed with rights and responsibilities. Those rights are to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, property. And our responsibilities are to respect those rights in others. And if everybody would just respect each other's life, liberty, and property, what a wonderful world it would be. So that's basically what it boils down to is respect. If you respect others, hopefully you get some respect back.
And what I think is basically, I guess that's my guess that in most countries in their constitution is basically those rights are in their constitution, or should be. At least in Mexico, we also have those rights on our amendments, and we should. That's theoretical speaking. That's in theory. That's what should happen. Um, but the thing is that in practice is different, and that's when politics get involved. So you were predicting many of the things, or maybe all of the things that I know about politics are because of you. 20 years ago or 20 something years ago, you predicted many of the things that are happening, and and you made me very interested on politics, that I have to admit that at first was boring for me. Well, I was 17. I just watched MTV, and so teenager life. But but I listened. Maybe not very interested, but I listened, and you planted some seeds on my brain, and it took some time those seeds to grow up. But now I said, well, everything you talked about 20 years ago were current, and it took some time for at least for Mexico to or maybe also America to realize some of those things. And but the thing is that teenagers now are more interested or have more knowledge, maybe because of the internet, about politics, not just in their country but around the world. And uh, and American politics should be a matter of interest around the world, because everything that happens in America will affect mainly on the American continent and then around the world. What do you think about that?
Yeah, we are in that position, and it's oftentimes not a good position to be in, because when you're on top of the heap, you're the biggest target, and everybody wants to knock you off.
Right.
So, like, we've had nothing but trouble from the very beginning. So it's not always a good place to be.
And I guess in our podcast, of course, we're gonna talk about politics of today, the who is running for being president in the next few years. But let's just go back in time 2 decades ago. Um, George Bush was on the office, and that's as far as I can remember uh, in my lifetime. But I remember those days when you were using the word rhino, and for because for Democrats and Republicans, being in the office was important. But you were mentioning something more important. What if you have someone that you support that is on the party that you support, but it's a rhino? So what is that term?
What
Come
is a
from?
rhino? Well, it stands for Republican in name only. There's a lot of people that claim to be one thing and they actually are something else. We normally would call those people psychopaths or, con men, grifters. But to be polite, we just say that they're Republican in name only.
Yeah, because that can apply to many things, right? I mean, not just in politics, but
Right.
people that is in a certain group, but is not um, or either working on or doing anything about anything.
Yeah, they're basically on their own side. They like when you get into politics, the reason I call them parties, political party, is because party is a legal term that means a side in a dispute. If you take a side in a dispute, you're a member of that party.
All right.
And that's that you can look that up in the law dictionary, a party of the first part, talking about the party of the third part. It just means you've taken sides. Well, Rhino's taken sides, his own side. He's just pretending to be a Republican so that he can get your help, because he can't get what he wants without your help. So he has to trick you into thinking he's one of you. He's on your side. It's a classic con game, but like you said, it's applied to politics instead of something else.
And also a term that you taught me 20 years ago. You said, because I was learning about politics from zero, and you said, well, there's two parties in America: the Republicans and the Americans. And And I wrote that down. I said, okay, all right, so let's go to school on high school on Edison High School in Jefferson County, and ask this to the teachers: are you a republic? I mean, are a Democrat or an American, right? And they say, what? Yeah, because there's two parties, right? The Democrats and the Americans. So that's the first thing I learned. There was just two, because then you made me think about my country, and I say, well, in Mexico we have plenty of parties, uh, and from that point to now, I say, well, in the United States there's just two parties. But I remember when Donald Trump was thinking on running for president, he was considering running on independent way in a certain point. Do you remember that?
A little bit.
Because that's also an option in America, running on independent way.
Yeah, we've had several in my lifetime.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I can't remember, some guy named Anderson once, and Ross Perot was another one. I might be missing one, but I think there was at least three.
Hmm.
But well, even years ago, I mean, there's still what they call third parties, if you want to think of them as independent. Like up until, oh, I can't remember what year it was in my lifetime, the Communist Party ran candidates
Hmm.
for president every year. I mean, not every year, but every 4 years, and other parties as well. So there's more than two parties, but in effect, there can be only two.
Correct.
You're either in the majority, you're either the winner, or you're the loser. Now, there could be five losers, but they're all losers. They're on the losing side, and there can be only one winner. So, and in when you have the choice between freedom and slavery, that's the main divider right there.
Hmm.
You can have multiple parties being in favor of slavery and multiple parties being in favor of freedom. But in the end, there's only freedom and slavery. There are only two sides in human affairs. Either you're going to respect your neighbor's right to life, liberty, and property, or you're not. You're either going to respect them and their stuff, or you're going to take their life, their liberty, and their property. You're either a respecter or a taker. There's no other option.
And that's also a thing that I learned about that when I came back to Mexico and I started watching all the political behavior on my country, and I said, well, there's also two: the liberal and the conservatives. and and it's even worse than that. There's no conservatives. They're all, I mean, at least in Mexico right now, most of the parties are all liberals.
Yeah, same. Well, it's pretty much the same here. There's Well, right now the so-called Republican Party has the majority in Congress, but there's only 40 guys in what they call the Freedom Caucus. It's like these 40 Republicans that say they really believe in real freedom. And even amongst that group, there's only a handful that, if you watch the way they act, not just the way they talk, there's only a handful of them that are actual freedom fighters, as I would call them. So, yeah, freedom fighters are in short supply. There's there's a lot of people say they believe in freedom, but very few willing to actually work for it. It's so much easier just to lay down and let somebody put a chain around your neck.
And one there's one thing that I want to mention, and that we were mentioning before we went live. You run for Congress in a local level.
Yeah, it's called a state rep.
State
It's
rep.
just the local state legislature.
All right.
It's called state rep. I did it to teach my friends. I was trying to teach them how politics worked.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, there's no way I can win, but I'm going to run just to show you how this works. And so that's the main reason I ran. Because if you don't win your party's primary, you don't get to put your name on the ballot in the general election, which is the real election.
All right.
So each party has their own internal candidate selection election, if you want to call it that. They call it a primary. But the real name for it would be candidate selection election for each party. So each party has one of these internal private little elections. Then whoever wins that then gets to go on to battle it out with the other party in November, the main election, the general election. It's kind of like a tournament, like at the World Cup or something. You keep eliminating until you get to the final two. So the primary would be like the final four.
Okay.
And then the general would be the final two, the championship. So I told him, I said, there's no way I can win the primary because we don't have enough freedom fighters in our party's candidate selection committee. If we want to get a good guy on the ballot in November, we're first going to have to get a majority of good guys on that committee. And that's true politics. That's what politics is really all about, is being in control of one of the two major parties. Because if you're not, you're just a spectator.
Now, that was, if I can remember well, 2000. No, that was maybe 10 or 12 years ago. Am I right? Something like that. Because I remember even living in another house. Because that must have been 2010 something or 9. So back then, well, of course, you were already teaching a lot of this to your friends, but I remember my cousin Fernando used to tell me that you used to invite him to some of the lectures or teaching that you were teaching Constitution. Do you still do that?
Yeah, I still do. So on usually one weekend a month, some friends and I will go and teach a class on what the Constitution is all about.
Mm-hmm.
What this Declaration of Independence is all about, and then we have a section on how to get into the parties, how to become a member of a major party so that you can be part of that candidate selection process. Because if you are not picking your candidates, someone else will.
That is right.
You will never see an election where there are no candidates. We just take that for granted. There's always candidates. But we don't know where they come from. They're not dropping out of the cloud.
Yeah,
you don't find them on the side of the road.
we need some candidates. Where I can find them? Maybe online. Let me order someone on Amazon
Yeah.
with with certain specs.
Isn't that funny? We don't even think about it, do we? Like, there he is. There's a candidate, pop, just like popped into existence out of the fourth dimension.
We have a guy commenting. This guy is named Clint Heron. Says, "Is the system rigged?"
Yeah. I think
His question is,
that sounds familiar.
yeah, sounds familiar. He's asking, "Is the system rigged?"
Oh, is the system rigged? Well, of course it's rigged, but it's rigged in our favor. Right now, it's rigged in our favor,
Mhm.
which means if we know how it's rigged and then we actually take advantage of it being rigged, but it's rigged in a good way. It's set up the way you would hope it would be set up. The system isn't broken, it's neglected. And that's the way to think about it. It's just like our government is supposed to be for freedom and liberty and justice and respecting each other's life, liberty, and property. That's not broken. That idea is not broken. What's broken is the implementation, the execution, the
Right.
making the making it happen. That's the part that's broken. And it's broken. And well, actually, it's even the execution's not broken. It's neglected. Because we've neglected it, other people without good intentions, with other intentions, are taking advantage of the same system that we could take advantage of if we would just, well, first of all, you have to know about it. You have to know that it exists. And then you have to know how to work it. It's just like any tool, any system. It's not that complex either. So it's a simple process. But that's so yeah, the system's rigged, but it's rigged in our favor.
He's also commenting. He says, "Great episode thus far, and such a handsome voice."
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clint Heron. He's commenting through YouTube. Just remember our audience that we are going through Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at the same time, thanks to the technology of StreamYard, where people can comment and we can respond if the question is something that we have the enough knowledge to talk about. Um, Also, Rick, I have another thing to comment. Is when I was learning all this political terminology, I learned something that you taught me also. Passing a bill, and at first was something like passing a bill, like a dollar bill. What do you pass a bill for? It's not it's not commerce, and and of course when I learned what that meant, and then I compare with Mexico what is passing a bill, and then you go deeper and you said passing a bill is not just a technical word. There's also a profound meaning, because even if the candidate of your political party that you support is passing a bill or not doing it, sometimes it won't depend on that particular person. It is a order from a higher level. So that's when the word rhino comes to mind, because if you are really into your beliefs, passing a bill is is the moment in which you will prove the citizens if you are a rhino or not. Am I
Correct.
right? like the things that are happening in the state of Florida that are not happening in other states. Uh, what can you comment about that? Well, first, let's just read the comment of Clint Heron again. For people who want to do more than just vote in November, what would you recommend they to do?
Well, it's that candidate selection committee I was telling you about. If if once you take sides, well, first of all, you have to make a decision. Which side do you want to be on? Are you for freedom or are you for slavery? Now, even the people who are for slavery think they're for something good. They're saying, well, we're doing it for the people. We're doing it for the planet. We're doing it for the children. We're doing it for the polar bears. We're doing it, everybody thinks they're doing the right thing. Well, the first thing you got to do is really study to find out what really is good and bad, just and unjust, right and wrong, good and bad. Some people don't believe there is such a thing as good and bad, right and wrong. So first of all, you got to make that decision. Which side am I going to be on? Then you join the political party, which just means sides. Which side, political party, is most in line with what you believe? And then you have to become a member. If you really want to be involved, you have to become a member of the party's candidate selection committee. Everything's done by committees. There are no lone rangers in politics. You can sit at home and watch it on TV as a spectator, but to actually be involved, you have to be in a committee that actually votes on these bills like you're talking about, passing a law. A bill is nothing but a law. And then you have to pick your candidates in such a way that they will go into the legislature, introduce the bills you want to get introduced, and then pass them. But like you said, there's one key player in the whole thing, and that's the guy who's controlling the legislature, who's controlling Congress. And he does that by deciding what bills come up for a vote and when. And in America, he's called the Speaker of the House.
All right.
And in other countries, he's called Prime Minister.
Correct.
So if you really want to be involved, you have to be in that chain of how that guy becomes prime minister. You have to work towards getting your guy to become the prime minister, or as in our country, Speaker of the House. And most people don't even know that. They don't know what the Speaker of the House is. They don't know how important a prime minister is. They don't even know how they get elected. They think they pop out of a cloud, or they find them on the side of the road. Ask somebody, where does the prime minister come from? Where does the Speaker of the House come from? How do we know? Where does he come from? Who is he? How did he get that job? You mean he can decide what bills we vote on and when? Really? Who is this guy? Well, they don't teach any of that stuff. And to me, that would be a good subtitle for this podcast, and that would be Channel 3. See, there's an old joke from the old Soviet Union that goes like this. Well, you turn on the TV, put it on Channel 1, and there's a KGB guy standing there telling you what to think. And so you get sick of that and you turn it to Channel 2. And there's a guy standing there, another KGB guy telling you, turn back to Channel 1.
Or I'll kill you.
So basically, like if you watch the news, and I can only speak for America, you got the liberal news and you got the conservative news. Guess what? It's the same news. You know, from one channel one is the liberal perspective. Channel two is the same news, but they're criticizing it. They're saying this is dumb, this is stupid, but it's the same news. You're not learning anything new. One guy's saying it's wonderful, the other guy's saying it's stupid, but it's the same news. Channel 3 would be, oh, you don't like what's going on? This is how you can change it. The system is rigged. It's rigged in your favor. All you need to know is you do this, this, and this, and now you're plugged in. Now you're part of the supply chain, if you want to think of that way. You're part of the chain.
All right. Yeah, my mom just told me that she brought Fruit Loops for me.
Yay!
She doesn't care that we are in the middle of an important podcast talking about politics.
That's the nice thing about podcasts. You can take a Fruit Loop break if you want.
Yeah. We are sponsored by Fruit Loops.
That's our first sponsor.
Yeah, our first sponsor. Yeah. I'm sorry, distracted me a little bit about the last thing you were commenting. Actually, the name Channel 3, yeah, it can maybe that should be the name Channel 3 of the podcast, and then subtitle, let's talk about politics. Let's talk politics. Yeah, because that makes a lot of sense. That you said that happened on the Soviet Union is currently happening on Cuba. So it's like Cuba is like going into the past on our history, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's like going into the future, actually.
Yeah, well, past and future, right?
I mean, that is our future.
That is
if we don't stop them.
Right.
Like who's the guy that wrote 1984? George Orwell.
Yeah.
Well, I saw this interview of him. He was dying from tuberculosis, and they asked him, what can we do to, what is your vision for the future? And he said, well, it's a boot stamping on a human face forever.
Yeah.
And the interviewer said, what can we do about it? And he said, don't let it happen. Well, that's basically it. You just don't let it happen. I mean, which means you're going to have to do something. You just can't be a spectator. It's not like a football game where you're up in the stands cheering. You got to get down on the field. But of course, you get down on the field, you're going to get roughed up a bit. You're going to get your teeth bashed in.
Yeah, that's the way it is. That's life. Let's say hi to Josh. He's commenting. Joshua Johns, two great men right here.
Well, thank you.
Very good friend, Josh. Remember that I met him at Clint's and Jennifer's wedding. He was supposed to be a best man, and he ended up being a camera guy.
How about that?
Now he's a professional audiovisual expert. The thing that you were commenting about 1984 reminds me a thing that happened a few days ago. I was talking to my girlfriend. We were watching a movie, and then I stopped the movie and I start talking about the 1988 book, and then we continue watching this World War I movie. Then after the movie ended, we watched another World War II movie, and then we were commenting about the Cold War, and I said, "Wow, I'm Rick Heron." because that's I remember when I was a foreign exchange student that you used to play a lot of World War videos, documentaries, and of course for me at 17 that was kind of boring, but very uh, I was learning, and it kept. I mean, I kept some of those habits, and then I love history of the world, and it's very interesting because now young people, they have more tools where they can learn about. I mean, on all this media online, they can watch a lot of documentaries. Back in those days, History Channel was one of the channels where you can watch things. I don't, I think YouTube on the year 2000 didn't exist. I don't know. I think it didn't exist 20 years ago. But now, maybe that's the reason why a lot of young people is very interested, and they have a lot of knowledge on current politics around the world. And that's one of the questions that I want to ask you. What do you what do you on your perspective on Ohio, what have changed in 2 decades on the things that you were saying 20 years ago until now, about rhinos, about the position on the parties? What have changed in those 2 decades?
It, it's getting better. You know, we haven't arrived. You know, we're not, the freedom fighters are not in control. You know, we're not the majority in the party yet. But in the last, like I remember like 10 cycles ago, 10 elections ago, we had like maybe one guy at the state level, you know. And then the next cycle, it was two. And the next cycle, it was 10. And so it keeps climbing. You know, now we're not there yet. And until you have a majority, you're basically not even there at all. If you lose by one vote, like if there's 100 people in your legislature, there's 100 seats, you have to have 51 votes, or it's like you don't exist. You got to be the majority, because that's how the prime minister is elected. That's how the Speaker of the House is elected, by majority vote within the legislature. And if you have the majority, you get to be the prime minister or the Speaker of the House. Same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the guy who decides what we're going to vote on. And even if we're going to vote on it, and when we're going to vote on it. You know, so, and pretty much every country has this similar system where they have a small group, very small group, that decides what we're going to vote on and when. And so you have to be in that chain. And like in Ohio, we're just not there yet. In fact, we had 20. It actually started getting so good. We got to the point where we had the conservatives, that is, the freedom fighters, had a majority in the state legislature for like an hour. Actually, it wasn't even an hour, like a minute. We had 20 guys, 20 of our legislators, Republicans, so-called conservatives, switched sides and voted with the Democrats to vote for their speaker, for their Speaker of the House. So even though in name only we had a Republican majority,
In name only.
and under the covers, 20 of our so-called Republicans were actually Democrats. But that's a good thing, because if they didn't do that, we would have never known. Now they've given away their true loyalties, their true nature. So we'll know next time, at the next cycle.
Like
I
like
doubt it.
in a Scooby-Doo cartoon when they took off their mask and they reveal who's the real villain.
So I mean, it's
getting better at
getting
least.
better. Like I used to tell people back in the 70s when I started getting involved, there was no light at the end of the tunnel. There was none of the pro-freedom people I knew thought there was any hope at all.
And how old were you back then?
About 25, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 25, 26.
So you were pretty young when you start getting involved with all this. And so I have a question that is, that has been all. Maybe the answer will change year by year, but is Ohio, the state of Ohio, one of the most conservative states in the United States?
No, it's split right down the middle. It's half and half.
So which, on your consideration, which will be the most conservative states? At least on this year.
Probably right now, probably Florida.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Governor DeSantis. I guess that's a Spanish name, I guess. What does that mean in Spanish, DeSantis?
Of saints.
Of the saints.
Yes.
Yeah, he is one of the saints.
Now I want to ask you another question that is a big. The answer will be, the topic is going to be very extended. Maybe that will be the topic of our next podcast about Donald Trump, but from the beginning. So maybe we can split the answer in maybe in several podcasts. But let's talk about, at least for now, the first stage of Donald Trump on politics officially, because on Donald Trump's idea, he was into politics from decades ago. But at least when he was running for president, um, at the beginning, he ran for being a candidate in the, what is it called, internal running. What is it called? The first.
The primaries?
Primaries, right.
Yeah, that's that internal candidate selection election I was telling you about.
All right. And many Republicans were not very convinced of Donald Trump at first. Of course, right now the history is different, but back in 2015 or so, what do you think about Republicans taking Donald Trump as a considering for running for presidency?
Well, all I know is, what I hear. Most of the people I hear like him a lot. They always have, But on the news, channel 2. Channel 2 is always telling you, we don't know, there's a lot of Republicans don't like him. I don't know. They're always trying to plant a seed of doubt in your head. Channel 1, they come right on and tell you, he's the devil. But on Channel 2, they tell you he's the devil, but they try to say it in a nice way, we don't like him so much. He's scary. He scares people. And Channel 3, I would say, hey, if he's the nominee, I'm voting for him. I mean, when he came out with his list of candidates for federal judges, I knew that was the guy I was going to vote for, because it's not what these people say; it's what they do. And if he was going to appoint the judges he had on that list, and all those people had been vetted or scrutinized by a very pro freedom organization, they've had that list for years, saying this is our dream team of judges. You know, they'd hold up that list. This is our dream team. And no one ever took them up on it until Trump came along. Trump said, I'll appoint every one of those people. And as soon as he said that, I went, okay, he's my candidate. And he went on to do it. He actually did it. Which is, even in politics, that's even stranger, when someone actually does what they say they're going to do, you know.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Because I believe, well, of course, Donald Trump is a phenomenon, not just on the Republican Party, but in around the world. He has done many of the things that not just talking, but doing, and things that are being appreciated in other countries, including Mexico. Not at first, not when he was a candidate, because uh, the world was afraid of him being a president. But now I believe that people, citizens of the United States and citizens around the world, are are really appreciating Donald Trump now that he's not a president, because he was comparing him now with Biden. is is the real way to know what president you had previously.
Right. Yeah. And that's actually, that you're right. That's a phenomenon as well, that people are yearning for the old days.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I wish we could go back.
Those 4 years were fantastic.
And yeah. Well, I would hope that we could learn to have that same kind of interest and enthusiasm for the Speaker of the House, because the Speaker of the House is actually much more powerful than the president.
Mhm.
But because Channel 1 and Channel 2 very seldom talk about the Speaker or the Prime Minister, you know, and when they do, they don't really tell you much. They just make it sound like, oh, he's just some guy,
Yeah.
you know. He's like the guy that delivers coffee in the morning, you know. He's the Amazon delivery guy.
It's just the messenger. Correct. And that's one of the I think it was one of the biggest messages that we as regular citizens should learn, that sometimes what we believe in politics, how we believe politics work, are not necessarily the reality. Like yeah, like we always see the president of the like the most powerful person in each country, and but we don't take into consideration the rest of the guys that will supposedly empower him, or taking down all the power, or the options, or the bills that might pass, the laws, the new laws that might do something well for the country.
Well, the president is the executive branch. Executive means they execute the law. Like in a company, you got a chief executive officer. You know, he's the one that makes it happen. But he's not the true power in a company. The true power is the board of directors. And even more important is the chairman of the board of directors. because he runs the meeting. He sets the agenda. And the chairman of the board is the guy you want to be, not the CEO. CEO is he's a worker bee just like everybody else. He has to make the board of directors and the chairman of the board's vision happen. Like the chairman of the board says, this is what we want to happen. This
is
is
it
our
enter on the keyboard?
Yeah. This is what we want to happen. And the CEO says, yes, sir. And he goes out and he makes it happen. Or you know what? They get another CEO.
Yeah.
He's an employee like you, like anybody else. And that's the way that's the way you have to think about the president. He's just the CEO. He's just the chief executive officer. He's not the chairman of the board.
Yeah, it's like the key enter.
Yep.
But if we don't like the key, let's bring another one.
That's right.
This one works better.
So yeah, we got to learn how this stuff works. It's like they say, you plan your work and then you work the plan. Well, the plan is already there.
Mm-hmm.
The plan is already working. It's just not working for us because we're not working it. If we're not working the plan's not working for us.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was a very good example with good of how things really work on politics. And maybe on our next podcast we can go deeper on the news, the more recent news on politics around the world, especially talking about the United States, and we can maybe present some of the videos of one of the most recent news.
Okay.
You
know what else we could do? We could give the viewers some homework.
Yeah, and
like, okay, I'm going to say everybody knows what country they live in. Everybody probably knows what state they live in. I'm going to guess probably 99% of the people know what county they live in.
Uh-huh.
and even maybe half of the people know what township they live in or city.
Yeah.
But in politics, there's only one geographical area around you that matters. And that is your political neighborhood. It's called a precinct. Let's see if the audience can go out and figure out what precinct they live in.
All right.
Because actually, through my experience, most people don't even know they live in a precinct. They don't know what it is. Never heard of it.
I think in Mexico it's called the district.
Could be.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that and have someone to comment on live in here. But it was really our very good pilot test for our talk. So in our next episode, we'll have our name, Channel 3. Let's talk politics. Yeah, that's a good name. That's a good name. All right. Well, Rick, let's say goodbye to your audience. Let's say Mr. Clint Heron and Joshua Johns were people commenting online. Thank you very much if you're still online. And please share this podcast with people that you believe that will be interesting in hearing all this information, or share them either way. They might like it.
Like a lot of the podcasts I watch, they always say, make sure you hit the like button.
Hit the like button and subscribe. Yes, of course, to our channel, to our YouTube channel.
And not only that, you ring that bell.
And ring that bell. And ring that bell and smash the like button.
Oh, and not only that, you know what we could do for a bell? We should have a bell at the end of each episode. It'd be the Liberty Bell.
Right.
You know, and have it clang and clang, clang.
Not the liberal, but the Liberty Bell. Right.
Oh, there's
Yeah,
the music.
Pardon?
I hear the music.
You hear the music? Yeah. All right, Rick. Well, thank you very much. We say goodbye after we hit the end the broadcast button. And but for now, thank you very much for our talk. We have the name of our new podcast, and we have homework to do, and we already have our next topic. So thank you very much for this conversation of almost an hour. And do not disconnect, because we're gonna say goodbye out of the air. Thank you very much to the audience, and please stay tuned for our next episode. We have. Thank you for the episode. It says Clean Heron. It was very enjoyable and informative. Thank you very much, Clean Heron. We expect you to be on tune on our next episode. That is gonna be called Channel 3. Let's talk politics. Thank you very much and have a great day. Bye-bye.